Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Greater Atlanta Area Virtual College Fair. You're going to be hearing from Agnes Scott College tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I just have a few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You'll be able to use the Q&A button on your screen to type questions to our presenters at any time. As a reminder, your camera and your microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of the many different sessions happening, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at that same website where you registered. I'd now like to turn it over to our panelists.
Hi, welcome. We're so glad you're here with us today. If you wanted to learn a little bit about Agnes Scott College, you are in the right place. So we'll go ahead and kind of dive right in. So my name is Irfa. I'm an admission counselor at Agnes Scott College, and I have some awesome friends with me here today. So Alexis, do you want to come on and introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi there. Good evening, everybody. My name is Alexis Skeen, and I am an Assistant Director of Admission here at Agnes Scott. And we're also joined by a current Scottie, Gabrielle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabrielle Anthony. I'm a current senior at Agnes Scott College, and I'm a public health major and classical literature minor. And I'm very excited to show a little bit of Agnes Scott to you today.
Wonderful. So I'm so excited. We're going to dive right in. So we're going to give you kind of an overview of Agnes Scott, our campus, our community, what kind of makes us unique. And then you'll also be able to hear from Gabrielle about her kind of experience on campus. So the first thing I want to talk about is our campus community. We have about 1,081 students. So some would say small but mighty. We pack a lot of diversity into this number. And of course, diversity has many different aspects. So I do want to kind of talk through a couple of them to give you an example of what our campus and our student body looks like. So our student body is representative of 42 states and 17 countries. So as you can already see, there's a lot of geographical diversity. We have a lot of students that come from in-state, but also a nice balance of students that are from out of states and even from all over the world. Another identity marker to kind of give you an idea, we have about 63% students that identify as students of color. So we don't really have a racial majority on campus, which creates this awesome, unique, dynamic environment. Another example of diversity on our campus, we do have about 33% of our first-gen college students identifying as first-gen. This in particular is really, really important to me. I myself was a first-gen student, so it's really wonderful that Agnes Scott already has this amazing community built in for support for students to kind of go through that college experience for the first time. Down below, you will notice our gender policy, and there's some more information on this on our website. But just to point out another aspect of our diversity. So while we are a women-centered college, we are an inclusive women's college. So that means you'll find gender diversity on our campus. So there are students that identify as female, transgender, agender, gender fluid, and non-binary. Some of you might be familiar with Agnes Scott, some of you might not be. So a couple of quick context bits to give you an idea of what Agnes Scott is all about. So we are located in Decatur, Georgia, about 10 minutes outside of Atlanta. So really close to kind of the big city, but in this really awesome small city. Decatur has always been a favorite of mine. Gabrielle, I know that you've spent a lot of time in Decatur too as a student. Do you want to touch on Decatur a little bit?
Sure. So Decatur, as an Agnes Scott student, is really your backyard. It's a quick 5 to 7 minute walk from our campus. And there's everything from festivals to coffee shops and stores where students might work. And that's a great location for you to get off campus if you don't want to go too far. And an excellent community that I think that thrives with Agnes Scott in it.
Absolutely. And we'll dive into Decatur in a minute. But just to kind of give you an idea, I know I'm biased loving Decatur, but our students seem to love it too. Like I mentioned already, we are a women's college and we focus on a liberal arts curriculum. What this means is if you take a look at our majors and our minors, which we will get into, you'll find kind of a range and a diversity of majors offered. So STEM majors, humanities, arts, more, etc. We also have a signature summit experience. So Alexis will dive into this a little bit later, but this experience is really what makes Agnes Scott unique. And last but not least, we are a NCAA Division III varsity athletics school, so we do offer 6 sports. I mentioned we would do a deep dive into Decatur, and really kind of what we want to touch on is our accessibility. So Gabrielle already talked about how you can just walk to downtown Decatur, but Decatur also houses our MARTA station, which is our public transportation system. So you can take the MARTA train to anywhere in Atlanta, and this really does open up the entire community, even if you don't bring a car onto our campus. And I also want to highlight a wonderful partnership that we recently curated just in the past couple of years. Our campus bookstore, I'm proud to say, is actually a partner with Karis Books and More, and that is one of the oldest feminist bookstores in the Southeast. So it gives you kind of an idea of our values and the type of partnerships we want to have. I also want to give you a little bit of context of what it is like to be in an Agnes Scott classroom. So we have a 10-to-1 student to faculty ratio. This gives you an idea of how our faculty are really able to build one-on-one relationships with our students. So they know your name, they know what your interests are, and they're able to have really great opportunities like office hours where they're able to spend time with you and help you. Our average class size is about 16 students. So for some of you, that might even be smaller than your current high school classes. And that's exciting because most of our classes are discussion based and you're able to really engage in critical dialogue with each other. Like I said, we are students, we do excel at student-centered teaching, and this is especially important at Agnes Scott because you do this in a diverse classroom environment. So I already talked about kind of a couple of those diversity identity markers. And so as you can imagine, students are able to kind of do their reading, learn about their content, and then talk about it from their own perspectives. And they come from different walks of life. So you're able to really hear about different thoughts and perspectives, which creates for this really awesome classroom environment and this great community, both inside and outside of the classroom. So often these conversations will continue in your residence halls, in your student organizations, kind of all over campus. Taking a look at why our students choose to study in a women-centered environment, I'm actually going to turn this over to Gabby because that's what she does.
So I chose a women-centered environment. I was looking at all kinds of colleges, but the Agnes Scott's experience really struck me because I knew that I was able to have deeper relationships with professors and students on campus because of the size. But also every decision that's made on campus is really thought with you in mind first as a student. And it really matters to all of our administration and staff and faculty that you're heard on our campus, and higher education can be sometimes a really challenging place for people, especially women and other gender minorities, that Agnes Scott really makes sure that you as a student are put first, and all of the great experiences and growth that happen on our campus translate wonderfully to the workplace, and that really shows in the kinds of internships and opportunities that students have after Agnes Scott.
Thank you for that, Gabrielle. I'm so glad you kind of touched on that because that kind of lends perfectly into our next topic. So Alexis, again, will talk about Summit and our academic offerings in a minute, but I really want you to think about our mission statement because our mission statement is truly the anchor for our campus community, for the reason why Summit exists, for why students choose to be on our campus. So the mission of Agnes Scott College is to educate women to think deeply, to live honorably, and to engage the intellectual and social challenges of our times. So you might wonder, how do students do this? How does this actually play out on a day-to-day basis? So Alexis is about to kind of talk through that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Irfa. That's actually a fabulous transition. So, like Irfa mentioned, our mission statement is something that is at our core. It is something that our Scotties live by and our campus community really rallies around. So the way that we carry out that mission statement is through a program called SUMMIT. SUMMIT is a 4-year rigorous academic experience that all of our students receive and participate in. So regardless of your major, whether you're an astrophysics major at Agnes Scott or an art history major, you will be participating in SUMMIT. And SUMMIT provides Scotties with real-world hands-on opportunities that really prepare them for a lifetime of professional, academic, and social success and mobility. So it's really preparing students not only to excel at while they're at Agnes Scott, but also once they go on to that next step, whether that's graduate school or whether that's entering the job force. And so you might be wondering, well, what does this program look like? What does this curriculum look like? SUMMIT is really centered around 3 core areas or 3 core concepts. The first one is going to be global learning. So at Agnes Scott, we really value how we're a part of a larger global community. So there are global patterns at play, ways that we are alike, maybe other countries, ways that we are different than other countries. But at Agnes Scott, you're really going to have opportunities and experiences to explore other cultures and view things from kind of more of that global lens. The second area of emphasis through the SUMMIT curriculum is leadership development. So we really encourage all of our Scotties to lead. And that could look different for you. It could be different for you than it looks like for me. That can be very different. But at the base level, we are all change agents. And we believe that you all have skills and things that you can bring to the table as a leader. The third main area and core emphasis of SUMMIT is professional success. So we'll talk more about some signature experiences like Scale, where you're actually partnering with an Atlanta organization and doing an externship, but there are lots of opportunities for professional success as well. And you're kind of doing all of this in the context of your major and your discipline. So at Agnes Scott, we have 34 majors, 32 minors. I won't go into all of those, but our top 5 majors include things like biology, public health, which is Gabrielle's major, also history, creative writing, business management, psychology. Those are all kind of our most popular majors, but of course, like Irfa mentioned, we're a liberal arts institution, so we kind of run the gamut. We have a lot of offerings. I know in the chat, we actually got a question about taking courses at other Atlanta campuses. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of answer that question now. So the answer to that is yes. There are a couple different ways that you can take courses on other Atlanta campuses. One is through something called dual degree programs. If you are interested in engineering, computer science, or nursing, you fall into a dual degree major category. So that means you do 3 years at Agnes Scott and 2 years at a partner institution. Computer science and nursing are going to fall under Emory, and engineering is going to be Georgia Tech. And so you would apply into those programs, and in 5 years, you would actually receive 2 bachelor's degrees, one from Agnes Scott and then one from Emory or Georgia Tech. If you are not interested in nursing, computer science, or engineering, you can also participate in what we call cross-registration. And that's where you take a singular course. Maybe there's a course you're really interested in, let's say, for example, Arabic. Unfortunately, Agnes Scott does not have an Arabic program or language offering, but you're welcome to take that at any Atlanta 4-year institution that offers Arabic. So we do have a lot of flexibility there. And then we also have 6 graduate programs. So we do have Scotties who kind of stay at Agnes Scott, but then also, continue on and do a master's program. So going back to SUMMIT, I want to talk through some signature experiences to kind of really illustrate how we incorporate global learning, leadership development, and professional success into your 4-year experience at Agnes Scott. I want to be transparent and say that you could be on this Zoom meeting and say, I know my path, I know exactly what I want to major in and what I want to do. And you may be sitting on this Zoom call like I was in high school and say, I have no idea, I'm undecided, I don't know what my path in college is going to look like. The great news is that Summit really, prepares and empowers students to carve their own path and do whatever that means for you. So I'm going to talk about some signature experiences that really helps give students that clarity that they might be looking for. And throughout the way, I am going to pull in Gabrielle because she's a Scottie and she can share her experience to give y'all insight into what that looked like for her. The first signature experience is Legacy. This is a 2-part leadership immersion program. The first part is actually taking place during orientation. And so you are exploring your own leadership style. There's an exam called the StrengthsFinder test, which tells you how you best lead. We also encourage our students to have really meaningful conversations surrounding allyship, power, privilege, bias, how that comes into being a leader. The picture you see here is actually from the Center for Civil and Human Rights, which is located in Atlanta. And then that second part of Legacy is kind of going to be applying what you learned and reflecting on what you learned and applying it to your own professional goals. So once you get farther into your first year, you'll actually kind of clarify what your goals are and apply those leadership concepts. Another signature experience is what we call an LDR or Leadership 101 course. This is a 4-credit-hour course where students really get to dive into a leadership concept through the lens of an academic discipline. So you can see here, leadership is not just defined to public speaking or confined to business. You might choose that you want to take an LDR 101 course and that focuses on young adult fantasy novels and film, or you might want to take one that focuses on women and political leaders, right? So Gabrielle, can you talk a little bit about your own LDR 101 experience and what course you took?
Sure. And the best thing about these, I think, is that they change every year. And so students have different options for themselves. Mine was called Calling BS, and we were looking at all the different ways that different types of news or even reputable articles can be false, and how information can be changed. And we looked at things like big data. So all of these different things, kind of leadership within your research, say if you're a STEM student, I know this definitely pushed me a little towards my major of public health, of knowing, what's the real information here and what's maybe being changed a little bit for public or private interest. So I think these classes are really great in helping students understand what leadership looks like in every different field.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Gabrielle. I love how you kind of use that real world application. That's so valuable to hear. Another kind of core signature experience that you will have as an Agnes Scott student is participating in global learning. So all of our students take a 1-credit-hour Global 102 course. This happens during the spring of your first year. And this is looking at a specific global pattern or global system and seeing it kind of how it shapes people's lives. This is also another course that you can kind of rank your preferences on, and then from there you're placed into the course. So the first piece of Global 102 is taking a course. So you get to know a professor very well and classmates. But then the second component of that Global 102 course is actually a global immersion experience. So all of our students have participated in some sort of kind of week-long travel experience. Before COVID-19, many of our students were going to international locations. Not all, we did have some domestic locations, but students were actually going to Ecuador to explore diversity in health, or going to Bulgaria to look at globalization, identity, and social change. As you can imagine, with the pandemic, Agnes Scott has had to shift that plan a little bit, as I'm sure you all have had to shift, and maybe you're going to school virtually now, or maybe your family, things look differently for you and your family. So Agnes Scott has pivoted, and what we've done is we are still emphasizing global learning. We've just tweaked it a little bit. So every single international location also has a domestic area that we hope students will be able to travel to in the spring. So for example, with that Ecuador trip, students are connecting virtually with medical physicians in Ecuador, but their hope is that they can travel to Florida in the spring if it's safe and kind of get a hands-on experience down in Florida relating to diversity and health. I do also want to emphasize that thanks to our generous donors, these trips have been included and paid for students. So that has been the case at least thus far. Again, we're still prioritizing that global learning component. It just looks a little bit different in a pandemic world. Gabrielle, can you talk a little bit about your journey's experience?
Sure. So now, 3 years ago, I was gearing up.
So long ago.
I know, to go to Guatemala, specifically in a few like indigenous towns in Guatemala. It was a great experience. We covered women and humanitarian aid and how humanitarian aid can be sometimes not so helpful to a country and the people. One of my favorite things about these trips is you really learn what travel looks like ethically, and a skill that you can take with you for the rest of your life. So whether you decide you want to go somewhere and be a tourist or not. And also note that a lot of students decide to travel abroad through some of our other options that we have on campus.
Yeah, great point, Gabrielle. Actually, about half of our students go on to study abroad again after that first year for a full semester or a full year. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Another core experience is going to be professional exploration. We want to prepare you for what comes next at Agnes Scott and make sure that you're exploring and applying those leadership concepts and thinking really strategically about what you want your professional career to look like. All of our students participate in SCALE, which stands for Sophomore Class Atlanta Leadership Experience, but this is where students are doing a week-long externship with an Atlanta-based organization, and that's actually happening on site. So the hope there is that students go for that week-long externship, but then maybe that leads to an internship down the road, or that actually leads to a job offer after they graduate. So that's something, SCALE is something all of our students receive the second year. Aside from that, many of our students seek out their own internship and research opportunities. 70% of Scotties completed at least one internship. Half of our students have actually done 2 or more. And then a little over 50% completed mentored research. Every year we host our spring annual research conference called Spark. That's a very popular event. I've seen research projects done on everything from the life cycle of a star to there was a project, a public health project I saw that was looking at the common cold. And if you're more likely to recover from the common cold if you stay home and relax and don't do anything, or you actually like go out and live your everyday life. So they're really, really interesting projects that our Scotties come up with. Gabrielle, can you talk a little bit about some of your internship and research experiences?
Sure. So all of my internships, I either found myself or had a professor help me find, which I think is important to talk about. Professors are helping students find these opportunities. So I've worked with the AIDS Services Foundation, which is actually here. I'm in California in Orange County. I've also worked with Johns Hopkins University in creating programming for students, and that's a summer where I got to spend 2 months in Seattle, which was really fun for me. And then most recently, I've worked with the VA, the Veterans Administration, in all of their COVID-19 processes. So a lot of this is hands-on, and you can find out what you do like to do as a student through an internship, or maybe what you definitely don't want to do. And I think both of those experiences are really valuable.
Definitely. Thanks, Gabrielle. We have been talking a lot about Decatur and Atlanta. One major advantage of coming to college in Atlanta is just access to the plethora of organizations that call Atlanta home. So we have several students who intern for the CDC, like we talked about, Coca-Cola, AT&T. Atlanta is also has a great nonprofit hub as well. So for example, the Carter Center, or more closer to home, the Decatur Arts Alliance. So our students are very well connected regardless of the field that they'd like to go into. And then I know this can maybe sound a little overwhelming. We've talked about a lot of signature experiences, but do know that you will be supported both at Agnes Scott and after. Throughout a Scottie's time, they really receive access to 4 different types or networks of advising. So you are not going to be thrown into the deep end and not know how to swim. The first person or first advisor you'll actually meet is your Summit advisor. This is kind of your go-to person to help with course registration and works with you and gets to know you throughout your 4 years. You also have access to peer advising, which are upper class Scotties who help with that transition to college and really make you feel welcome and feel like no question is a dumb question. You know, if you have questions about your roommate or getting involved on campus, that's kind of your go-to person. Once you declare your major, Gabrielle mentioned kind of faculty and professors helping. You will get a faculty mentor who really knows your major and can help you and guide you in that area. And then lastly, we have career communities. So these are kind of communities based and organized by industry. So for example, there's a business and communication career community or a health sciences and environmental sciences career community. And these are made up of alums, current students, and career coaches to really help support students with their resume or finding an internship. And they're a really nice network of support that kind of approach careers from multiple different angles. Gabrielle, how has your support system held up across your 4 years now that you're a senior? I can't believe it.
I know. Really great, honestly. I still know who my peer advisor is. She has graduated, but she was really helpful in me understanding how best to study for college courses. So I always like to point that out. I studied a little in high school, but once I got to college, I did realize I needed to ramp that up a little bit. So peer advisors are great for that. And I'll also note my faculty mentor, someone I meet with maybe once or twice a semester just to talk about how things are going. My career interests have changed so often, and that's completely okay because they're there to support you throughout your time at Agnes Scott.
Most definitely. Well, I am now going to turn it over to Irfa to talk a little bit about admission and financial aid.
Thanks, Alexis. So we will have a couple of minutes at the end to answer any questions you have. So while I'm talking through admission and financial aid, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A so we can kind of gather those and answer those at the end. But talking to you a little bit about our deadlines, so very important for our seniors. We have a variety of deadlines, as you can see on screen, and they range from November 1st to March 15th. A couple that I want to highlight. So November 1st is our early decision deadline, which is binding. So this is if you know that Agnes Scott is where you want to be, we welcome you to apply to this deadline. If you're considering Agnes Scott but still want to keep your options open, you can apply to either early action 1 or 2, which will give you a little bit of time to make kind of your final decision. But of course, you can apply all the way until March 15th. There isn't really a difference in the way that we review your application for a specific deadline. So know that you won't have kind of an advantage in one deadline over another. We review our applications holistically, which means we look at all parts of your application and we will have consistent selectivity throughout those deadlines. The biggest deadline to kind of highlight is our January 15th deadline. This one is important because it is our scholarship priority deadline. So students that apply by January 15th will automatically be considered for our merit-based scholarships at the time of your application review. So taking a look at our merit-based scholarships, those range anywhere from $18,000 to $25,000. So again, this is determined as we are reviewing your application. There is kind of a top tier merit-based scholarship that we have this year called the Trailblazer Scholarship. And this is a $25,000 scholarship that is renewable for up to 4 years. The way to be eligible for the scholarship is to be admitted to Agnes Scott and to have a 3.75 or above GPA. So if you meet kind of these two criteria, you receive your Trailblazer Scholarship notification along with your admission decision. But again, know that we will still consider you for that range of 18,000 to 25,000, even if your GPA doesn't fall at that 3.75 mark. Another grant that I want to highlight that is really exciting, it is in place for this year. So if you are a senior, we have a $1,000 Great Scott grant. So this is for students applying this fall. And the way to be eligible for this grant is to attend our Great Scott open house. So we've already had 2 that have passed. But we have one more in November, so November 3rd. It is a about 2-hour program where you get to hear from awesome Scotties like Gabrielle, from some of our faculty, and you kind of get a more in-depth look at Agnes Scott. So it's a great place to gather more information, and that $1,000 grant is just an extra exciting incentive. If you are interested in that, we will drop a link in well, I guess we don't have a chat box. Never mind. We will send you some of that information if you would like to attend that event. If you also go onto our website, you can register for the Great Scott event. Perfect. So now we're just going to kind of see what questions you have.
All right, let's see. Oh, this is a great question. This is a great question for Gabrielle. I'm going to answer this one live because I think a lot of students will want to know. Gabrielle, what types of activities and clubs are popular? So maybe talk about some of those popular ones, but then can you also tell us what specifically are you involved with on campus?
Sure. So this is a little piece that is really exciting for me because I feel like one of the best ways to get involved on our campus is to join a club and organization. So we have over 60 available to students for just over 1,000. That's a lot of clubs. And I like to say that there's a place for everyone at Agnes Scott. Most popular, I'd say, are ones surrounding general interests. Like we have an anime club. We also have identity-based clubs. So we have Wakazi, which is our BSU, our Black Students Union, Latinas Unidas, which is for our Latinx identifying students. So there's so many. Ascend for LGBTQIA+ students. And the interests range from everything from beekeeping to what you like to do on the weekends. I know there's even a group of students who just likes to try new restaurants in Atlanta at Agnes Scott. So it really just depends on what you're interested in. Those are some really popular ones. We also have overarching programs like our programming board, and they just put out things for students to do all the time anyway. So that's another great way. And all of these things are for students by students. So you really have the opportunity to be leaders in these clubs and organizations as well. And I'm involved in our NAACP on campus and our Ascend, which is the LGBTQIA+ community on campus.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabrielle. We do have another question. Irfa, would you mind answering that one question? It's a little bit more personal. I'm hoping since I'm screen sharing, maybe you can answer that question. But we just got another one that's a little bit more applicable to everybody. This one is, do students have to live on campus? Gabrielle's actually an RA, so perfect person to talk about that.
I love these questions that are popping up. Students are highly encouraged to live on campus. Most of our students do. There are some stipulations that will allow you to not live on campus, meaning you have to live in a certain radius, and there are a few other qualifications. But for the most part, it's highly encouraged, and most students live on campus all 4 years.
Yeah, and Gabrielle, can you talk a little bit about the first year housing options versus once you become an upper class Scottie? What does that look like?
So your first year, it's kind of like the basic dorm room. You're with there's 2 students in a room and the shared communal restrooms. That of course can be scary for students. It was definitely for me, but it turned out to be fine. And I met some of my best friends during my first year because you're housed with all first years. After that, once you're a sophomore, junior, senior, your options open up. We have apartments, we have houses that house 8 to 9 students, suite style dorms, as well as some more community style dorms. So it really just depends on what you want after that. But that first year experience to me is just so much fun, being able to live in close proximity with all of these people that are going through the same thing as you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And a quick plug I would just add on to that is we do have a virtual tour, and it kind of gives you a 360 view of a first year residence hall. So if you go online to our visit website, I think it's agnescott.edu/visit, or just Google Agnes Scott visits, the virtual visit should come up, and you can actually kind of do a 360 walk around, which is super helpful right now. By the way, with visits right now, we are doing this completely virtually. Again, our hope is we'll have more information about what the spring might look like, and we might be able to, if it's safe, to go ahead and open up some in-person visits. But right now, all visits are virtual. Oh, this is a great one. Are there any fun traditions?
Great question. There's so many fun traditions. I love talking about them. So most recently, just last week, we had our Black Cat Week, which is a week-long experience for students where different classes compete against each other. If you're a current senior, you'll be a yellow class if you decide that Agnes Scott is for you. And during that year, during the Black Cat Week, we kind of compete against each other. There's party days. Our juniors always put on a play that kind of is like it's a satirical play of the college, which is always super fun. And that's a year that has its own, a week that has its own traditions. One of my favorite is our Black Ring ceremony. You receive your black ring during your second year at Agnes Scott. I'm actually wearing mine now. And during your black ring,
hold it up a little
oh,
longer.
sure.
Sorry, it's beautiful. Thank
you. During your sophomore year, you receive your black ring, and it's really something that signifies that, you know, you're in it to win it now. Agnes Scott is definitely the place for you, and it's also a connection to all the other people that have gone to Agnes Scott. One of my favorite things is most recently, it's become available to all students, regardless of whether or not you can afford it now. And that's through our Student Government Association, which is a really popular, I guess you could consider it an organization on our campus, and they work together to change things on campus, and that's student-led as well. So that's just a little taste of our traditions. There's so many, and those are also available on our website for people to check out.
Perfect. Our next question says, what is a typical first year experience? Academics, Summit, question mark. I'm happy to kind of generally talk about this, but Gabrielle and Irfa, feel free to hop in if I miss something. The first year curriculum really encourages students to explore. I think that's kind of at the core of who we are as a liberal arts institution. So it's okay if you have a variety of interests. We really want, at the end of the day, we really want to teach our students how to be critical thinkers, how to communicate effectively. We want you to kind of be both right-brained and left-brained, so to speak, right? Be experiencing different courses and different disciplines. So within the first year at Agnes Scott, you're going to take a leadership course like we talked about. You're also going to take that global learning courses. So those two are for sure guarantees. We also require one STEM course of your choosing, one fine arts course, and one social science humanities course. All of our first years also take an English course, like an English 1101, I think it is. That's really just to get you introduced to college level writing. And then also we require 4 semesters of the same foreign language. So as you can see, there's a lot of variety there, and students are able to have a lot of autonomy and really pick the courses that interest them. Mm-hmm. Anything else to add, Gabrielle or Irfa, on that one?
I'll just add that I think first year experience outside of maybe the academics is that students, you'll never have really a dull moment, especially those first few weeks on campus. There's so much going on, and there's consistent spaces for you to connect with other students, both in your class and not in your class. So that's a big part, and I'll attest to what Alexis said. I came in as a nursing major, but switched to public health because I found that that was what I was most interested in. So it really just depends on you as a student as well.
All right. Any other questions? We have just a few more minutes. We're happy to answer any questions you have. Gabrielle, I might throw one in. This is my own personal question.
Sure.
But can you talk a little bit about what it's like to be a student from California or an out-of-state student at Agnes Scott?
Yeah, I actually know, I feel like I know so many out-of-state students. So when I kind of grew up in a suburban area in California, but when you go to Agnes Scott, it's a very tight-knit community. We talked about Decatur and the little area outside of Agnes Scott, also really tight-knit community. And there are opportunities for you to do all types of things. Atlanta is a big city, so maybe if you don't come from one and you want one, or even if you're in Atlanta, a lot of students say they experience Atlanta differently as a college student. I will say I do, fly back and forth. I run into like alum every once in a while. It's really a great experience, I think, to get out of your comfort zone and maybe try something you're not as used to when picking a college, and more specifically a women's college in Agnes Scott, because there are so many opportunities surrounding it. So you'll have access to everything I think you could imagine. Yeah.
Definitely. And a fun fact about Atlanta is that we actually have one of the highest concentrations of college going students compared to other cities in America. So you all probably know that because you're probably sitting in on some awesome sessions from other institutions, but you are not alone as a college student in Atlanta for sure.
Yeah.
It looks like this might be our last question here. It's a good one to wrap up on. What would you say to students who are more used to co-ed education and might be nervous about that women's college experience? What advice would you kind of have for them?
I went to a public high school, middle school, elementary school, and those were always co-ed for me. I would say it's not, I don't think students realize I don't walk around campus and like imagine or like think that I'm missing out on anything. Again, I'm in a big city if I ever want to like leave campus or, experience something different. But when I'm in the classroom, that's really all that matters. I think nervousness maybe around a women's college might be around, maybe you don't think you're going to be around men as much, or you'll think that you'll be missing out on something. But I will say I don't really think about it until other people bring it up. And I think you see the value in that. I think when I'm talking to students maybe I went to high school with, I see the value in a women's college experience, and it's really a special place because it's a huge time for growth. And I think when students, it's best to be in an environment that is going to encourage that growth all 4 years.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabrielle. I really appreciate you sharing your insight and your experience with us. And thank you, Irfa, as well, for co-leading with me. We are so excited that you all have been able to join us this evening. We will send a follow-up email after this session for you to get connected to your admission counselor and get to know Agnes Scott a little bit more. So thank you so much for joining us.
Wow, what a great presentation. Thank you, presenters, so much for all the great information that you shared tonight. And thank you, attendees, for sticking around and listening to this great presentation. When you close this window, there'll be a link to a very quick 4-question survey, so that we hope that you'll provide us some feedback if you have some. Also, this was just one of the many sessions being hosted, so please feel free to sign up for additional sessions. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording, as well as other session recordings on the website where you registered. Thanks so much, and have a great night, everyone.